Hey Taurus, come sit with me because what I just pulled for you is something we need to talk about honestly. This reading showed up with such intense energy, and I think the universe is asking you to look at something you might have been avoiding. This is about those shadow aspects, those parts of yourself that maybe you don't like acknowledging, and the dreams or intuitive nudges that are trying to get your attention. I shuffled the deck asking what dark shadows or repressed aspects you need to confront right now, and the cards that came through are not here to scare you but to illuminate what needs your attention. Sometimes the most profound healing happens when we stop running from what makes us uncomfortable and actually turn around to face it. So I pulled 10 cards for you. And honestly, each one revealed a layer of this shadow work journey you're on. Let me walk you through what came up because this is deep, this is real, and this is necessary. The first card I pulled is the Five of Swords, and immediately I felt this energy of conflict and defeat. This card is showing me that there's a part of you that carries this warrior mentality, but in a way that's actually hurting you. You know that feeling when you win an argument but lose the relationship? That's what this card represents. For you, Taurus, this shadow aspect might be about how you handle conflict in your life. There's this tendency to hold on to being right even when it costs you peace. The Five of Swords is asking you to look at where you're creating unnecessary battles in your mind or in your relationships. Maybe you replay conversations over and over, thinking of what you should have said, or maybe you hold grudges longer than necessary because letting go feels like losing. This shadow side of you believes that protecting your ego is more important than connection, and that's what needs to be confronted. The universe is showing you that this defensive stance you take, this need to prove yourself or to not be taken advantage of, is actually isolating you more than protecting you. I see someone who might push people away before they can hurt you, who strikes first emotionally to avoid being vulnerable. This card is revealing that your fear of being deceived or defeated has created this harsh, combative energy within you that comes out in ways you might not even realize. It's time to ask yourself what you're really fighting for and whether these battles are worth the energy you're investing in them. The second card that appeared is the Sun, and this surprised me at first because the Sun is usually such a positive card. But in the context of shadow work, it's revealing something important. The Sun here is showing me that there's a shadow side to your optimism or your need to appear happy and successful. You know how sometimes we put on this bright face for the world even when we're struggling inside? That's what's happening here. The shadow aspect the Sun is revealing is about false positivity or toxic positivity, where you don't allow yourself to feel the darker emotions because you think you always need to be strong or shine brightly. For you, Taurus, this might manifest as refusing to admit when you're not okay, dismissing your own pain because you feel like you should just be grateful or positive, or even judging yourself harshly when you're going through difficult emotions. This card is asking you to confront the part of you that has learned to perform happiness rather than actually feel it. There might be this pressure you put on yourself to be the stable one, the reliable one, the one who has it all together, and that pressure has created this shadow where you hide your authentic struggles. The universe wants you to understand that real light includes shadows. That wholeness means accepting both your joy and your pain. This repressed side of you that thinks you always need to be shining is actually preventing you from experiencing genuine emotional depth and connection. When you can't show your darkness to others, you can't truly show your light either because both are filtered through this performance of what you think people want to see. The third card is Ace of Pentacles, and in this shadow reading, it's bringing up issues around security and materialism. The Ace of Pentacles represents new beginnings in the material world, but the shadow side of this energy is about how you might use material things or financial security as a replacement for emotional fulfillment. For Taurus, who naturally values stability and comfort, this can be a significant shadow aspect to confront. This card is revealing that you might have developed a pattern where you equate your worth with what you have or what you can provide materially. There's this repressed fear of not having enough, of losing everything, that drives you to sometimes prioritize financial security over emotional or spiritual growth. I'm sensing that you might resist taking emotional risks or pursuing dreams that don't have a clear material payoff because you're so focused on building this fortress of security around yourself. The shadow here is that you've made an identity out of being practical, being grounded, being the one who has their life together financially, and that identity has become a cage. This card is asking you to look at where your relationship with money and possessions has become unhealthy, where you're holding on so tightly to what you have that you can't open your hands to receive something new. Maybe you judge people who are less materially successful, or maybe you use shopping or acquiring things as a way to fill emotional voids. The universe is showing you that this need for tangible proof of your worth is actually a defense mechanism against feeling your deeper fears of inadequacy or abandonment. The fourth card that came through is Three of Swords, and this one cuts deep because it's directly about heartbreak and pain. In the context of your shadow work, this card is revealing that you're carrying wounds that you haven't fully processed. The Three of Swords shows me that there's grief, betrayal, or emotional pain that you've pushed down because it was too painful to deal with at the time. For you, Taurus, who values loyalty and commitment so highly, betrayal hits differently. This shadow aspect is about the walls you've built around your heart because of past hurts. You might not even realize how much old pain is still influencing your current relationships and decisions. This card is asking you to confront the part of you that's still bleeding from wounds you pretend have healed. Maybe there's a relationship that ended that you never really grieved properly, or a betrayal that you've tried to logic away rather than feel. The repressed aspect here is your vulnerability, your capacity to fully feel heartbreak without shutting down. I'm seeing that you might have developed this pattern of numbing yourself or becoming cynical about love and connection, because acknowledging how much something hurt would mean admitting how much you cared. This shadow side believes that feeling the full depth of your pain would destroy you, so you've locked it away. But the universe is showing you that this unprocessed grief is actually what's keeping you stuck, what's preventing you from opening your heart fully to new experiences and people. The Three of Swords is asking you to finally let yourself cry, to acknowledge what broke your heart, and to stop pretending you're over things you've never actually worked through. The fifth card is the Devil. And oh, this is significant for shadow work. The Devil represents bondage, addiction, and the chains we create for ourselves. For you, Taurus, this card is revealing patterns of behavior that have become destructive, but that you've normalized or justified. This shadow aspect might show up as unhealthy attachments to people, substances, habits, or ways of thinking that keep you trapped. The Devil is asking you to look at where you've given your power away, where you've become dependent on something outside yourself for your sense of okayness. This could be emotional dependencies on certain relationships where you've lost yourself, or it could be more literal addictions to food, spending, work, or even to certain emotional states like anger or self-pity. What makes this a shadow is that you probably don't want to admit how much control these patterns have over you. You might rationalize your behavior, minimize the impact, or compare yourself to others who you perceive as worse off. The universe is showing me that there's a part of you that's aware something isn't right, but you're scared of what would happen if you actually confronted it and made a change. This card reveals the shadow of self-sabotage, where you keep yourself in situations or patterns that hurt you, because at least they're familiar. For Taurus, who craves comfort and routine, this can be especially challenging because even negative patterns can feel safer than the unknown territory of change. The Devil is asking you to examine what you're chained to, what you tell yourself you need but is actually keeping you small and stuck. This is about facing your compulsions, your unhealthy coping mechanisms, and the ways you've compromised your freedom and authenticity for temporary comfort or relief. The sixth card is Six of Cups, and in a shadow reading, this card brings up issues around nostalgia and living in the past. The Six of Cups is showing me that you have this tendency to romanticize what was, to hold on to memories and past versions of people or situations in a way that prevents you from being fully present. For you, Taurus, this shadow aspect might manifest as constantly comparing your current life to how things used to be, or holding on to relationships that have ended because you can't let go of who that person once was to you. This card is revealing that you might be stuck in a loop of nostalgia that's actually keeping you from creating new, meaningful experiences. There's this part of you that believes the best times are behind you, or that you'll never feel the way you once felt, and that belief is creating your current reality. The repressed aspect here is your capacity to be disappointed, to acknowledge that some things from your past weren't actually as perfect as you remember them. You might idealize your childhood, past relationships, or earlier versions of yourself as a way to avoid dealing with present challenges or disappointments. The universe is asking you to confront how this backward-looking orientation is affecting your ability to manifest the future you want. When you're constantly trying to recreate what was, you can't be open to what could be. This shadow also touches on issues around forgiveness and closure, because you might be holding on to past hurts under the guise of treasuring memories. The Six of Cups is showing you that your attachment to the past is a form of resistance to your own growth and evolution. And it's time to lovingly release what was so you can fully embrace what is and what's coming. The seventh card that appeared is Ten of Wands, and this card is about burden, responsibility, and burnout. In your shadow reading, Taurus, this is revealing that you have this pattern of taking on way too much and then resenting it while simultaneously refusing to let anything go. The Ten of Wands shows me someone who's carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, who's become so identified with being the responsible one, the capable one, the one who handles everything, that you don't know how to function without the burden. This shadow aspect is about martyrdom and how you might use your responsibilities and busyness as a way to avoid dealing with deeper issues or emotions. For you, there might be this unconscious belief that your worth is tied to how much you can handle or how much you do for others. The repressed part here is your need for rest, for help, for support, and the vulnerability that comes with admitting you can't do everything alone. I'm seeing that you might resist delegating or asking for assistance because you don't trust others to do things the way you would, or because being needed gives you a sense of purpose and importance. This card is asking you to confront the part of you that's addicted to struggle, that believes ease means laziness, or that you haven't earned your worth unless you're exhausted. The universe is showing you that this pattern is not sustainable, and that the resentment building underneath all these responsibilities is poisoning your relationships and your relationship with yourself. The Ten of Wands reveals the shadow of control disguised as helpfulness, where you take on everything so you can maintain the illusion that you're indispensable or to avoid facing what you'd have to deal with if you actually had time to sit still and feel. The 8th card is Page of Pentacles, and in the context of shadow work, this card is bringing up issues around learning, growth, and how you handle being a beginner at something. The Page of Pentacles represents the energy of the student, the apprentice, someone who's starting a new journey of mastery. But the shadow side of this for you, Taurus, is that you might resist being in that vulnerable beginner position because you're so attached to appearing competent and knowledgeable. This card is revealing that you have a fear of looking foolish or inexperienced that prevents you from trying new things or admitting when you don't know something. For someone who values stability and expertise, being in a learning phase where you're uncertain or making mistakes can feel threatening to your identity. The repressed aspect here is your curiosity, your willingness to explore without knowing the outcome, and your capacity to be vulnerable enough to say you need to learn. I'm seeing that you might stick to what you know you're good at, rather than expanding into new territories because the discomfort of not being immediately proficient is too much. This shadow also touches on perfectionism and how you might procrastinate on starting things because you're afraid you won't do them perfectly. The universe is asking you to confront this part of you that has confused mastery with worth, that believes you need to already be an expert at something before you're allowed to do it. The Page of Pentacles is showing you that your resistance to the learning process is keeping you stuck in patterns and situations that you've outgrown, and that real growth requires you to be okay with being awkward, uncertain, and imperfect as you develop new skills and ways of being. The 9th card is 3 of Pentacles, and this card brings up themes around collaboration, recognition, and how you show up in group settings or professional environments. In your shadow reading, the 3 of Pentacles is revealing issues around how you handle working with others and your need for acknowledgement. For you, Taurus, this might manifest as either being too rigid and controlling in collaborative situations because you don't trust others to meet your standards, or on the flip side, not speaking up about your contributions because you're uncomfortable advocating for yourself. This card is showing me that there's a shadow around your relationship with recognition and validation in your work or creative endeavors. You might downplay your achievements or refuse to take credit because you've internalized that needing recognition is selfish or egotistical. But underneath that, you're actually resentful when others don't notice or appreciate what you do. The repressed aspect here is your authentic need to be seen and valued for your contributions, and the anger or hurt you feel when that doesn't happen. The 3 of Pentacles is asking you to confront how you handle professional or creative partnerships, where you might be either too dominant or too self-effacing, never finding that balanced middle ground. This shadow also touches on comparison and competition, where you might secretly measure yourself against others while pretending you don't care about status or position. The universe is showing you that your discomfort with collaboration often stems from control issues or from a fear that if others truly saw your work, they'd find it lacking. This card reveals that you need to examine your relationship with teamwork, with receiving feedback, and with the vulnerability of putting your work or ideas out there to be evaluated by others. The 10th and final card is 10 of Swords, and this is such a powerful card to end on for shadow work. The 10 of Swords represents rock bottom, betrayal, painful endings, and the point where you can't go any lower. In your shadow reading, Taurus, This card is revealing that you have a tendency toward catastrophic thinking and victim mentality that you might not fully acknowledge. The Ten of Swords shows me that when things go wrong, there's a part of you that goes all the way to the worst-case scenario, that dramatizes the pain or betrayal, and that might even have a subtle attachment to the narrative of being defeated or wronged. This shadow aspect is about how you handle endings and losses, and how you might unconsciously keep yourself stuck in victim consciousness. For you, this could manifest as replaying painful experiences over and over, building evidence for why you should never trust again or why nothing works out for you, or using past betrayals as justification for closing yourself off. The repressed part here is your resilience, your capacity to rise from the ashes, and the power you have to rewrite your story. The universe is showing me that you might resist letting go of your pain because it's become part of your identity, because it gives you a reason to not take risks, or because the sympathy and understanding you get from others for your suffering has become a form of connection you're not ready to release. This card is asking you to confront the ways you keep yourself in the energy of defeat, even when the actual situation has passed. The Ten of Swords reveals the shadow of enjoying your martyrdom, of finding a perverse comfort in being the one who's been hurt, who's had it so hard, who deserves sympathy. This is not about dismissing real pain or trauma, but about recognizing when you're using those experiences as armor against living fully. The card is showing you that every ending is also a new beginning, but you have to be willing to get up from where you've fallen and stop rehearsing the story of how you got there. So Taurus, as I look at all 10 cards together, what emerges is a portrait of someone who's built incredible defenses and developed patterns that once served to protect you, but have now become the very things keeping you trapped. Your shadow work right now is about confronting these aspects with honesty and compassion, understanding that they developed for a reason, but recognizing when they've outlived their usefulness. The universe is asking you to look at your relationship with conflict, with vulnerability, with material security, with past pain, with unhealthy attachments, with nostalgia, with responsibility, with learning, with recognition, and with defeat. These aren't easy things to face, and that's why they're shadows. That's why you've kept them hidden even from yourself. But here's what I want you to understand. Shadow work isn't about destroying parts of yourself or labeling them as bad. It's about integration, about bringing these repressed aspects into the light so they can transform. When you acknowledge the warrior in you who fights unnecessarily, you can redirect that energy toward battles worth fighting. When you accept that you don't always have to shine brightly, you give yourself permission to rest and be human. When you examine your attachment to security, you can develop a healthier relationship with abundance that includes trust and flow, not just grasping and holding on. Your dreams and intuitive nudges have probably been trying to get your attention about these things. Maybe you've been having dreams about conflict or betrayal, about being chased or trapped, about losing things or being exposed. These are all your subconscious mind's way of saying these shadows need attention. Pay attention to the patterns in your dreams, to the emotions that come up when you wake, to the themes that repeat. Your inner world is trying to guide you toward wholeness, the transformation available to you right now. Taurus is profound. When you do this work of confronting your shadows, when you bring awareness to these patterns and make different choices, you free up so much energy that's been tied up in maintaining these defenses. You become more authentic, more present, more capable of genuine connection and intimacy. You stop repeating the same painful cycles and start creating new patterns that actually serve your growth and happiness. This isn't going to happen overnight. Shadow work is deep work, ongoing work, and it requires courage and commitment. But you're a Taurus, which means you have the capacity for sustained effort and the determination to see things through. Use your natural tenacity for this inner work. Be patient with yourself as you uncover and examine these aspects. Be willing to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it or make it go away. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Working with a therapist, counselor, or trusted spiritual guide can be incredibly helpful when you're doing deep shadow work. Having someone who can hold space for you as you explore these darker territories, who can reflect back what they see and help you process what comes up, can make the journey less overwhelming and more productive. The cards are showing me that this is your time for this work, Taurus. The universe has brought these shadows to the surface not to punish you, but to liberate you. On the other side of confronting these repressed aspects is a version of you that's more whole, more free, more authentically powerful. That version of you isn't constantly battling themselves or others, isn't performing happiness while suffering inside. isn't chained to the past or to patterns that don't serve them. Trust this process even when it's uncomfortable. Trust that the universe is guiding you toward healing and integration. And most importantly, trust yourself to have the strength and wisdom to face what needs to be faced and transform what needs to be transformed. You're being called to become more fully yourself by acknowledging and embracing all the parts of yourself, including the ones you'd rather not see. That's the real journey. That's where the real magic happens. Take care of yourself through this Taurus. Be gentle but honest. Be willing but not rushed. And know that this shadow work is some of the most important work you'll ever do.